In this video, we're going to go ahead and take this design that I created here in a tool called UX Pilot. We're going to go ahead and take this design and we're actually going to turn it into a functional application that we can use to actually help us generate a color palette. The idea for this product actually came to me because as I was using AI to build out some applications, one of the things that I struggled with as a non-designer is actually picking a good color palette. So what this tool is going to enable us to do is that we're actually going to be able to just go ahead and type in here exactly the tool that we want, or maybe we can describe the type of color palette that we want AI to help us generate. We're going to be able to click this button and AI is going to go ahead and it's going to help us generate this color palette here. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and minimize everything here. And in my projects folder that I have here, I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder and I'm going to call it AI color picker tool, right? And basically the project is going to live in this folder. I'm going to go ahead and open up cursor. I'm going to click open project, and in the projects folder, I'm going to go ahead and select that folder that we just created. All right. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring this up here. So as you see, this folder is empty, and in the terminal, I'm going to click on new terminal. And we're going to go ahead and run a command in here. But before I do that, I'm actually going to show you the web framework that we're actually going to use to go ahead and create this tool. So the framework that we're going to use is a framework called Astro. I like it because it's mainly based around HTML and CSS. It's minimal JavaScript by default. So it's a really cool framework to use when you're vibe coding simple applications just like this one, right? So I'm going to paste in this npm create Astro at latest. I'm going to go ahead and click enter. And as you see here, it's going to go ahead and gives us this nice little animation here as it loads. So it's going to say, where should we create a new project? I'm just going to hit the dot because I want to create in this root folder. All right, I'm going to select a basic helpful starter project. Perfect. Install dependencies. Yes. Do we want to initialize a new Git repository? For my case, no, because I just want this to just be local on my machine. I don't plan on cloud hosting this. Although it is a good idea to just have a Git repository to back up all your projects too. And by the way, I will include this project where you can download it. So eventually I will be creating a Git repository, but I don't want to go through that step right now. So we're going to go ahead and let this project initialize. Okay, perfect. And just like that, Astro has been installed, right? So if I go here to source and pages, this is actually going to be the index page, and it loads in this welcome component. So if I come in here and actually type in npm run dev and I hit enter and I just click on this localhost button, you'll actually see that this here is the Astro starter template that was provided. So it says to open up this source pages directory, right? So this is basically where I am, but really what's happening on this index page, this home page, is that it's actually loading this welcome component. So if I come here to components and I click on welcome, you'll actually see here the same text that we just saw, right? So it says to get started, open the source pages. We see that right here on this page. Okay, so now that we know that Astro is installed, there's another thing that we actually need to install, and that is called Tailwind. And I'm actually going to explain why. So here in UX Pilot, if I come to this design and I click on view source code, you'll actually see that this actually has Tailwind. Now, we can use a different type of CSS framework, right? So Tailwind is a CSS framework for web page styling, very popular on the web. There's actually a mobile version called Native Wind, but on the web, it's really Tailwind. So Tailwind's kind of the standard nowadays when it comes to a lot of web-based styling. So what I'm actually going to do is that on my Mac, I just hit Control C, just to kind of cancel it out and get back to this command prompt. And I'm going to paste in here a new command so that we can go ahead and install Tailwind onto this Astro project. Okay, so the command that I pasted is npx astro add tailwind, right? And if I go ahead and just hit enter, I'm going to hit yes, continue. I'm going to hit that a couple more times. And just like that, it went ahead and it installed Tailwind onto the project. And because we are vibe coding, so if you're not sure, one thing we can do is that we can always just come over here and I'm just going to ask Sonnet if Tailwind is installed on my Astro project. So I basically typed in here, is Tailwind set up on my current Astro project? And basically we're just going to go ahead and have AI just look through our files and just make sure that Tailwind is properly installed onto our Astro project. Because after all, we are vibe coding, we're not engineers here, so we're definitely going to lean on the AI to go ahead and do as much for us so that we can actually build this application. So as you see here, Claude did verify that Tailwind was installed, and what's actually pretty cool is that it actually pointed at basically different areas in our code base where we can actually see that Tailwind was set up for us. All right, so this basically confirms that Tailwind is installed. And again, if I just go ahead and hit npm run dev, I'm just going to launch this again. And as you see, I'm able to actually launch this project without any issues, right? So that's a good thing. Okay, so now let's actually go ahead and get to the point where we actually start building. So here at UX Pilot, one of the reasons that I actually love this tool for building is that it actually now allows you to export this as HTML. And because Astro is mainly based around HTML and it also has Tailwind, actually being able to take this design and basically bring it right into our project has never been easier. So if I just click on these three dots and I click on export, you see here it provides a type HTML, right? We can download a PDF, an image, maybe if we're sending to somebody to preview, but for our case, we just need HTML. So if I go ahead and just launch this HTML file, what you're actually going to see here is that it's actually a not dynamic, but it almost feels like a usable application, right? We have a text field box that we can write in. We have a button that has a hover effect on it. These color palette boxes here also have a hover effect on them, right? So this is the exact page that we want to bring into our project. All right, so what I'm gonna do is that here in the HTML file, I'm just gonna right click. I'm gonna open it with cursor. So it's going to open it right here. And what I'm going to do next in our pages folder, I'm going to go ahead and create a page called app.astro, right? So Astro has a file-based routing system. So when we actually pull this up, this is actually going to be located at /app. So you're actually going to see exactly how that works here in a minute. So now that I have this, I'm just going to copy this whole thing and I'm going to paste it here, but not that simple. We're not done yet because we actually need to refactor this page so that instead of using the CDN of Tailwind, it actually uses our local Tailwind installation to our Astro project. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new agent here. And I'm going to go ahead and paste in a prompt that I use to handle this really nicely every single time using Claude. Okay, so the prompt that I have here is saying I have a raw HTML I want to add to my Astro project, and I tagged basically the page here. If you don't know how to tag, you can just hit the @ symbol, type in the file, right, that you want to tag, and you can just click on it and it will basically tag it just like you see here. Please convert it to a proper Astro page component, remove any CDN Tailwind links, use the project's existing Tailwind setup, and it provides a bit more detailed here. Basically, what this prompt is instructing the AI to do is to basically refactor the design here so that it fits into this Astro project. It uses the Tailwind configuration from the project. That way it just fits nicely into what we're building here. So that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and click the button there to let the agent go ahead and execute and refactor this page. So we're gonna let the AI go ahead and handle that now. Okay, so Claude has finished with redoing the whole page refactor. So if I navigate back over here to the app, and as you see in the local host, I hit the /app. You actually see here that the web page now looks exactly like the design that we have. So this is pretty cool. We can basically write in here. We have the same button hover effect. The color palette boxes also have a hover effect applied to them, right? So that was very, very seamless, right? Literally in a couple steps, we downloaded the design we wanted. We had Claude go ahead and do a complete page refactor. And now we were able to go from a design to having that design in our project with really just a prompt. All right, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so the next step, now we actually want to make this interactive, right? We want to be able to actually come in here, write in a prompt, hit this button, and actually generate a real color palette. In order to do that, we're actually going to use a tool called OpenRouter. So if you're not familiar with OpenRouter, basically with a simple API in their platform, you can actually access many different LLM models, right? So as you see here, on their website, we can access Gemini, GPT, Claude. If you actually click on this models button here, you'll actually see here a bunch of models that you probably haven't even heard of before. All right, and if you want to search up a certain model, you can just type in here, like for example, I'm typing in Claude, and we have Sonnet 4.5. What I also like about OpenRouter is that they actually have here little tags for what the model to use for. So we actually see here that a lot of people are actually using 4.5 for programming just as we are. So that's pretty cool. So back here in Cursor, I went ahead and created a new agent. And the reason that you see me doing that a lot is because the context window for AI agents in Cursor is very important, right? You don't just want to stick to one agent because what will happen is that they'll kind of run out of their context window. And so whenever you're implementing a new feature or doing something different, it's a really good idea to just start with a new agent and go from there. That way you actually have the best vibe coding experience possible. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go ahead and explain to Claude exactly what I want to do. And I'm actually going to explain to it how I plan to use OpenRouter. And before I actually do that, if I come here and go to Docs and I scroll down, what you're actually going to see here is that we're actually going to be using the Open Router API directly. So they have a Python example here. They also have a TypeScript example here. We're going to be using TypeScript example. TypeScript is just like JavaScript basically. And so it actually provides an example here of how the call should look like. So in our case, we're going to go ahead and call the Open Router endpoint here. We're going to need to generate an API key, right? So we're going to need an environment variable file. We're going to use the GPT-4o model, so that's fine. We can always update that anywhere. And then we're going to go ahead and also provide a prompt for this as well. So that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this here. And I'm going to go ahead and write out a detailed prompt here. And I'm going to put this into plan mode, which is a really, really, really cool feature that Cursor has. And I actually believe Anthropic actually started with the plan mode. Okay, so I put in here that I'm building an AI color picker app where when I write in a prompt into, and I basically tag the line. So as you see here, I tagged line 15, and 15 basically starts the input box, right? So it will call an LLM via Open Router. It needs to return a JSON format, some hex color codes that work well together to use my various SaaS or mobile app projects. It should follow the user's instructions. The response should map back into the color card holders. And again, I tagged line 38. So if I scroll down to line 38, you actually see here that the palette cards are actually injected right here. And then I also went ahead and I basically just pasted in the example of the API call, right? So we have here the Open Router API call. We have here basically the bearer key and how it's set up here. And there's a site URL here. This is optional, right? So probably don't have to worry about that stuff. And then one thing differently that I did here was that I actually created this .env file. So this is known as an environment variable. Because this project is really something I just really plan on using for myself, I really plan on just keeping it here on my computer. I'm not too worried about kind of just doing everything here in the front end. If I was building this application where other users can access it, then the actual API call would actually be built on a backend, right? I'd probably use maybe something like a Cloudflare worker, or I would build a Python fast API backend on Railway or Render. And then I'd have proper JWT authentication when it calls the endpoint and things like that. But because I'm just doing everything here in this project and I don't plan to really kind of make this a web-based application that the world can access, I'm just going to keep it here locally. And I like to just get in the habit of using environment variables instead of hard coding, because if I ever want to make changes in the future, or if I'm using the Open Router tool to do other things, well, I can use the same environment variable. So as you see here in the prompt, I'm basically telling the AI that it can use this here, open router underscore API underscore key, as the environment variable for the API key for the open router call. And I also put in here that we also need to support a loading state. So when the button is pressed, the user knows to wait until the color codes are generated. So I put go ahead and create a plan for all of this. Again, I am in plan mode. I'm going to go ahead and send that off here. And possibly it might come back and kind of have some questions for me. We'll see. Okay, so in plan mode, one of the things I like is that the AI can actually ask you questions, right? So that way you can make sure that's building your project the right way the first time. So for the first question, it says, what color roles should the LLM always return? Right? And then for the second question, is saying, what should the load state look like? Change button text to generating and disable it, right? So I could just say A for that one. And for this one, let's see here, I'd probably say a fixed set, right? So it's always going to be the background surface primary. It's always going to be those. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and click on continue. And then from here, Claude is going to go ahead and create a development plan to actually implement this. Okay, so as you see here, Claude went ahead and created a plan here, right? So it plans to create the API endpoint for Open Router, and it actually has a prompt structure here, which is pretty good. So as you see here, it's basically going to instruct the LLM exactly on how it needs to make the response back to the API call. And the cool thing about this is that now Claude actually understands what that API call is going to look like, and so it can actually shape the rest of the project for us, right? So it's going to update the front end, it's going to set up the environment variable, handle all of the error handling and everything. So that plan looks good to me. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit build, and we're going to go ahead and let Claude build out our application for us. Okay, so it's done. Claude went ahead and created a lot of code, right, in order to get this working. So before we can actually get this working, if you haven't already, you want to definitely come here to Open Router and create a key. So as you see here, I created a key. And basically in order to do that, you'll just come here in your Open Router account, just go to keys. As you see here, I just created a temporary key for this project, Right, so once you have that key in your environment variable, just like I have here, you just want to paste in that key. That way it can actually work. So once you do that, right, so back here into the project, right, I can type in something like, so I could say, create me a modern color palette with a orange primary color. I can hit generate palette. And just like that, we see here that the AI went ahead and generated a color palette with a primary of orange and some other colors that I can actually work with it. Now, one thing with this application, as you see here in the default state, it has these boxes here, right? So maybe in the default state, we don't want anything here. So coming back into here, I'm gonna just go ahead and create a prompt and basically letting Claude know that when the app is in a default state without a prompt, right? Don't load anything. Okay, so I put in here, when the app is in its default state, it still shows some colors. Let's make it empty by default and only show the boxes once prompted. All right, awesome. So Claude went ahead and made that change for us. So if I go back to our project, right, and I reload it, you see here that there's nothing here. Chrome went ahead and just saved this input that I used before. So I'm just gonna hit generate palette. As we see there, it went ahead and just generated this color palette for us right here. Okay, so one thing we want to do is also, we probably want to just center this right over the box, since, you know, for the most part, like this is all centered, just to kind of make this top part uniform. So I'll come back here into cursor, and for the header, I'm just going to hit Command L, which automatically brings it right in here into this chat box for the AI. And I'm going to say, center this header element text. All right, perfect. And as Claude does that, I'll go back over to the project. And as we see here, it's centered over it. All right. So again, if I just have an input there and I hit generate, bam, it goes ahead and generates a color palette. The reason it just went away is because it looked like it just made some updates here, but I'm just going to hit keep. And again, I'm just going to put in a prompt here. I'm just going to hit generate, and yep, generates a color palette right here. All right, so this is pretty cool. And one thing in OpenRouter is that if you actually want to track what's happening here, right, you can just go to activity, and under filters, you can filter by the API key. So for example, I'm using the YouTube temporary key. And as you see here, this is all the generations we've done. This is the token usage, the cost, right? So OpenRouter makes it really, really easy to actually help you track your usage by API key, which is super cool. Pretty much it for this project, right? Super easy to put together, a very useful tool for myself. What I'll probably do as a next step is that I will probably update the prompt that it makes over to the AI. It can kind of better help me when it comes to actually generating nice color palettes. So with that being said, if you want this actual tool that we just created here, I am going to provide a GitHub link, and all you have to do is just go there. You can download this as a zip. You can do the same thing I'm doing. Just hit npm run dev. It will run locally for you, and you definitely want to make sure that you go and you set your environment variable correctly. I will include a .env example file that you can use to go ahead and get this set up for yourself. But with that being said, that's pretty much it, right? So we literally just went from a design into a working application really quickly using AI. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope this added some value to you. And yeah, with that being said, do like, comment, let me know what you think, and do follow for more videos, as I definitely want to release more videos on vibe coding and just creating different applications and software with AI. So that being said, thank you so much for checking out the video, and I'll see you in the next one.